We're going to take a psychological and spiritual approach to this predicament because I truly don't see any other way that it would be appropriate to do so in regard to this topic. And when a woman likes you, but she's got kids and she's a single mom, there are a variety of factors that are simply apparent that you must accept, and it depends on a lot of different things. Like, there's no one size fits all answer to this, and I don't want to make this video as this is not about being derogatory towards single moms. I have a lot of compassion for single moms. However, and I don't mean that as in like, I love the single moms, I have compassion for single moms, but, that's not what I mean. I mean, I have compassion for these single moms because a lot of the times they've just simply made choices that were not congruent with a life filled with vitality, zest, and the ever-flowingness of oneness when it comes to consciousness. They just were not. They took an approach that was born out of impulse. They are operating on timelines that are high cost, low value, or high cost, high value a lot of the times. Single moms are not usually on low cost, high value timelines, let's say. And they're usually not on low cost, they might be on low cost, low value timelines, but usually women who are single moms are operating on a high cost timeline. It doesn't really matter the value, because the value is going to be determined by how you see the woman. So it also depends on your own predicament. How old are you? How old is she? How many kids does she have? What exactly is her situation? How did she become a single mom? Did she become a single mom by, leaving her husband who seemingly didn't do anything wrong? Did she become, a single mom because her husband, is now late husband? He got in a car accident or something. It depends on a lot of these factors. There's no one size fits all when it comes to this. And I think one of the most harrowing aspects of our culture and our political structure in our society, specifically here in the United States where I'm from, is that they really try to do a one size fits all narrative structure when it comes to all these situations, and it's just simply not the case. And even then, a lot of the times women will have the upper hand when it comes to legalities. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't necessarily think that it's a good thing either. Simply because a lot of the times when women who initiate divorce more than half the time, this is not a coincidence, right? This is not something that is something to just forget about. In fact, it's something to really invest attention into. And you have to recognize as well that as a man, let's say that this woman, she's your ideal woman, right? She likes you, she's attractive, and maybe you're in your late 20s or up to your early 40s, and you've gotten yourself to a decent spot. You have things going for yourself. You're not an idiot by any stretch. Maybe you're not like the best catch out there per se, but you've got your stuff together. You take care of yourself. You enjoy your life. Could there be some things that could be fixed on? Well, yeah, of course. But for the most part, you have a pretty solid life. And you meet a single mom who's maybe in her late 20s or even mid 20s up to her mid 30s. There's not going to be, and let's say also that this woman, she lost her husband in a traumatic thing, right? Well, so right there, you can look at that situation and you can say, okay, well, is this a woman that I can work with psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually? Probably, especially if she seems like she was a faithful woman and trustworthy to some degree, because women are are great assets when they are actually assets. Like, women are either liabilities or assets when it comes to your life. They will either take from you or they will multiply what you have. And the greatest lesson that I've learned with women is that you can either lead them or you can walk away from them. There's really no in between. Because women's sexuality is drawn to the spirit of a man. This is why looks maxing, I'm not a looks maxer, but I respect I respect what it actually strives to do. I don't really respect the mechanics of how they do that. Like, you don't need to bone crush or whatever, or wear shoulder pads. To me, that's just very feminine. To me, that's just very feminine. I don't need to change that much about myself. I don't need to get lip fillers or, plastic surgery or anything like that. I embrace who I am. And you might say, well, maybe, Thaddeus, that's because you're a reasonably attractive guy who's charismatic, who's got things going for himself, who loves himself, who loves his life, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, maybe it is. But I've made myself into the man that I am today. So, there's a lot of different things that you can look at. But anyway, let's say that this woman, who's in her mid-20s to mid-30s, she had that, traumatic accident or whatever with her husband, and now you're wanting to see if, she's a possible match for you as a significant other. I don't like to use the term partner. I think that's gay. Using the term partner, it's a very subtle psyop to try to make women on par with men. And look, women are not going to be on par with men when it comes to many different things, and many men are not going to be on par with women when it comes to certain things. It's like, we don't get mad at women for having menstrual cycles. Why would we get mad about that? Why would we try to compete with women who have menstrual cycles? It just doesn't, we're not the same type. We're the same species, but we're totally, completely different animals. So trying to compete and match one with another is just, to me, it's very ludicrous. And so anyway, I have to put all these caveats here before we get to the actual creme de la creme of this, because a lot of people will get upset. And I'm not trying to make people upset, but I want to approach this as truthfully as possible. So the fact of the matter is, you still have to deal with that woman who has had children with another man. And scientifically, this has been proven where, let's say you do have children with that woman who's had children with another man in the past, there's going to be a percentage of that child that will be yours, that's actually the DNA of the other man. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I were to have children, I want them to be mine. I don't want them to be part somebody else's. Me personally, it's just disgusting for me to think about, quite frankly. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about having my DNA being mixed up with some other dude, no matter what happened in the situation. That's just me personally. I'm not saying that you should think that way. I'm not saying that you shouldn't think that way. But me personally, I don't want to deal with that kind of crap. It's just, I get spiritually sick thinking about another man's DNA being in my child. It's just, apart from linear natural species reproduction systems, I don't, of course, the father and the mother are going to have an impact on the woman that I'm going to be with, right? Or the women that I'm going to be with, because I'm not strictly speaking monogamist, and that might irritate some other people, but I'm not even seeing anyone or dating anyone right now. I don't even have a desire to, but if I were to, I wouldn't be monogamist in the spirit of the time. I can get into that more later. But still, I would be polygynist, not polygamist, polygynist, where the man has multiple women, but not the other way around. And women will say, oh, that's not fair. That's not fair. Okay, well, it's not fair because you feel like it's not fair, okay? And yet, when you look at max virility in men across all different types of species, they're always more beautiful than women. across the board. And I would say that if you as a man have made yourself to be max virility, you are putting in the effort, you are willingly putting on the weight on your shoulders to go out there and build whatever you want to build each and every day, and multiple women want you, and those multiple women, they don't really care. They just want a piece of the king, right? They just want the Regal Alchemist and the Regal Shamanic Alchemist, that is. They just want a piece of the Regal Shamanic Alchemist. Why should I, as a kingly man, why should I, who has worked so hard to be where I want to be, and I'm open to having multiple women, and they want me, and they don't care about other women having me because they just want me. If they know that I'm going to take care of them, what's the big deal? It's a very weird thing, but again, we can get more into that later. But still, nonetheless, this woman who's in her 30s or mid-20s or whatever, maybe she's in her 40s or 50s, who knows? But it really depends on where you're at in your psychological development, as well as her psychological development and what exactly has happened. Because I don't think it's a good idea for a younger man to be with an older woman. There are outliers, of course. However, I've only seen one or two of those types of relationships work out long term, and one of them has gotten married in the last month. But other than that, and they're only a year or two apart, whereas women who are 5, 10 years, 20 years older than you, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I just don't think that it works out. I'm not repulsed by it or anything. It's just I don't think it works out. And the same thing with men, right? With men, well, actually, it's not the same thing with men because it's just not. But with men, you can be 5, 10, 20 years older. If you're in your 40s, your mid-40s, and the woman's in her mid-20s, I don't really see an issue with that at all. I really don't. And especially if she's a single mom in her 20s and you're in your 40s or 50s, and yeah, you're willing to accept that you'd rather have the 20-year-old version of her who's a single mom than the 35 to 45-year-old version of another woman who's single. Because here's the thing, right? I don't think that it's a great thing that we pretend that women psychophysiologically are the same when it comes to men, when it comes to their prime, biologically speaking. I truly am of the perception of the spirit of the time that women must get married as soon as they can, as young as they can, if they want a committed relationship and a family down the line. If they don't want that, why even get married? It's not your problem. It's not my concern. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. This is just my perception, because I don't think that single moms really in general are bad people, but most of the time they've just made a lot of bad decisions. And I'm not talking about all women who are single moms, of course, but it's just the case that a lot of the time women who are single moms have made a lot of series of bad decisions. And spiritually, if you are to really take on and think about the justification that you would have to make for your own being to take on another family member that is not even your own, it's not a bad thing. It's just, if you have the other option available to you, why would you do that? So if she likes you, but she's a single mom, there's a lot of different factors that you have to consider here. And there's a lot of different things, because there's no covenant of truth that you can opt into with a single mom who has left her husband for dead and wants all of these, whatever, child support payments and legal fees and all this stuff. She's fighting with custody battles and all that all the time. It's just, if it's just a mess, Why would you as a man put yourself in that situation? It's not your karma, unless you want to make it so. Like, it's not your problem. And I'm not really. I didn't want to talk about this specifically, but I guess it's kind of coming up naturally in this flow of consciousness. The whole case recently about the mother who has strangled, the children. You look at this situation and you see the mothers and the women who are supporting this woman who strangled her children to death. You're looking at women who are showing excessive sisterhood compassion. It's not even real. They just want women power. That's all they're thinking about. Because look, I'm not a follower of Christ, but I aim to embody Christ's teachings to the best of my ability. So I've naturally read the Bible quite a bit, and I've read a lot of different scriptures quite a bit. But something in the Bible that really stood out to me in the Genesis stories is when Eve, has, she has the tree, she has the forbidden fruit of knowledge of good and evil off the tree of forbidden fruit, producing those forbidden fruits. And the punishment, what is her punishment? Multitude of sorrows and suffering and multiplication of therein, as well as a desire for her husband. Well, there's a few different things you can think about it. And there's a few different types of interpretations that you can have of that story. In one interpretation of that story, you can say, okay, well, this is a woman herself, women as an archetype. Women have naturally this inclination to want the power of a man. This is also one of the other reasons why in the book of Proverbs, there's a passage in a scripture that says, a man must not give his strength unto women. Again, there's multiple ways of interpretations for that. You could say you're not giving your frame to a woman. You're not giving your life essence or your vitality to a woman, just unnecessarily, because you have to have yourself as a man. There's a great quote in The Godfather. He says, women and children can be careless, but men can't afford to be careless. It's very, very true. Women and children, if they can afford to be careless, especially women who in this society have the responsibility of children, but they have the capacity for entitlement beyond man. Like, they don't even have the authority of man. They have the entitlement that goes above that authority in their eyes. I'm not saying that's actually the case. I'm just saying in their eyes, their entitlement goes above the authority of men. I truly think that repealing the 19th Amendment, at least in the United States, would be a great way to start off, considering this case of the woman strangling her kids. I first heard about it by somebody in the Regal Academy, because they reached out to me and asked if I had heard about this, and I hadn't at the time. I've been very focused on my Godlike Mastery clients and my Godlike Mastery initiates, as well as the Regal Academy. I've got new classes coming in that I'm working with and working on. So I'm very diligent in my own, I'm just minding my business, really. But it's good to know about these types of things, because it can influence the potentialities of the realities that we experience. So, with this case, it's going to do one of two things, because I don't know exactly the specifics regarding the names of everybody and everything, but it seems to me that there's going to be two outcomes, potentially, maybe three. One outcome is going to be that, well, if she gets declared, insane, and that the health system has failed her, well, yeah, the health system has failed all of us. The health system, this is why I say I'm at war with the religionists, the politicians in the government, the education system, and the healthcare system. They're not actually systems to help you get out of systems. My Godlike Mastery offer, the Regal Academy, these are systems to get you out of systems. Everything that we hear from these, institutions, nearly everything, I won't say everything, but nearly everything is a lie or a gaslighting deception. And they're designed to make you perceive life in a certain way so that you feel less than about your entire existence. And this is why I do not recommend, I'm going to get to, this is the conclusion here. I do not recommend dating a single mom. If you're a man, no matter what type of man you are, I do not recommend dating a single mom. Now, what do we do? Thaddeus, if you don't recommend dating single moms, then what do you do with the women who are single moms? Well, there's always going to be another cuck. There's always going to be another cuck ready to take on the mantle of somebody else. He's going to be ready to take on something that's not his business to begin with. It's just the way that it is, and I don't want to degrade these men. However, you are disrespecting yourself if you choose to do this in regard to your psychophysiology. It's not even like my opinion. It's not even like what I think. It's that you are disrespecting yourself. Why do you think Jesus Christ said that it's not really good to marry a woman who's widowed? Or like what chapter is that in? Like, considering the fact that this is such a complex topic, because I want to be very mindful of my words, but I also don't want to sugarcoat it, because I've seen enough men suffer to want to stand up for men and realize that, like, if I truly want to see change in regard to this topic and in regard to this thing, not only do we have to be the change as men, we have to be holding women accountable. And things like this case with the woman who has strangled her children, not even children, multiple, to declare that woman clinically insane and that the healthcare system failed her, it only perpetuates the problem. Because the other outcome is, well, she actually, goes to jail and for manslaughter and murder, which I think if you look at enough of the evidence there, the man clearly did not do anything as far as the evidence that I've seen is concerned. And I don't have the sense that that's the case, because why else would all of this propaganda about women doing the hearts outside of the courthouse or whatever, showing support for the woman who strangled her children? This is insane. The society has gotten so sick that, number one, abortion. I'm not for abortion at all. This isn't even a political statement. This is a spiritual statement. You are killing a form of life. No matter how you look at it, you're killing a form of life. You just don't want to call it that. A lot of women don't. And look, I'm not a conservative. That's another thing. I'm not political. I'm at war with the politicians. I'm at war with the government. I'm at war with the healthcare system and the education system, because they're all conspiring to make us believe a certain narrative structure that if you're this way, then you have to be that, or if you're that way, you have to be this. No, I'm a sovereign individual. I don't have to play by these rules. When like a few years ago, I got to the point to where I had nothing to lose. And I realized that I could keep playing by the rules of the Matrix, or I could create my own rules to benefit me in the Matrix. Because you can't really escape the Matrix. Like, you can, but you can't. You got to learn how to use the Matrix. So, like, a basic version. I'm going to give you a very basic. This doesn't really have to do with the title or the topic of the video, but this is just a basic thing. Use your credit cards that you get cash back on to pay for your bills that you have to pay anyway. Why? Because you're using the bank's money to fund your bills, basically. Like, even if it's just 1% cash back on your credit card. I'm not saying go out and get credit. Like, this is not financial advice. I'm just saying this is what I do. I pay my bills with cashback credit cards. Because, hey, look, $1 here, $1 there. After a while, it adds up. You might save $100 on just bills, throughout the year. And that's going to be a way to fight inflation and all this stuff. Like, it's going to just be the entirety of fighting the Matrix. But I think the true core of this really lies with giving women far more benefit of the doubt than doubt of the benefit, so to speak. This is something that I've talked to somebody about. That's not my idea, or that's not my platitude, let's say. But that's a way to frame it, right? It's stop giving these people the benefit of the doubt and give them the doubt of the benefit. Women have to act in a certain way for me to even acknowledge that they're worth my time. That's just the case. And honestly, I've gotten better results and way more peace of mind because of it. So, lots more to say on this topic, I think, actually. But in the spirit of the time, I trust those that are ready to transform themselves and invest in themselves and really make an identity reconstruction in their architecture internally are going to apply to godlike mastery. And those that are ready for something else, something, maybe a group where you can feel more accountable, supported, as well as classes that you can take on your own time about pretty much any topic out there. In the Regal Academy, I've got a couple other classes coming in, within the next month or so that I'm really excited about. But I can't say anything because 'tis a secret. 'Tis a secret. But join the Regal Academy for systems to get out of systems, or the Godlike Mastery if you want a personal, custom-tailored system to get out of systems. That's where you go. Peace be with you. Be blessed. Until next time.